What is Consecration? Part 1. Hi there, this is Kathy, and welcome to What is Consecration? Part 1. In this video, we're going to look at a broader meaning and process of consecration as it's been taught by Sri Aurobindo and his spiritual partner, the Mother, along with a variety of devotees. And what we're going to do in this particular video is use snippets from a couple of Roy Posner's books, specifically Inspirations and Spiritual Life. If the idea of consecration is new to you, you might have some of the same questions that I did when I was first learning about this process and these teachings. And if so, hopefully the information I share in this video will help you. And a couple of the questions that I had early on, other than what is consecration to begin with, was what is the process of consecration and what do we consecrate? So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Consecration is allowing for, calling in, and opening to the spiritual force and power that permeates the universe. It can take the form of "Thy will be done" and then detaching and forgetting the matter. Life conditions are then set in right order, and there can be overwhelming positive response. Creation is the result, and without the restrictions of time and space, where the infinite replaces the current finite. What consecration does. Consecration solves problems, resolves conflicts, dissolves dead habits and unwanted traits, opens up new opportunities, generates freshness and enjoyment in everything we do, widens the personality, deepens our awareness, and reveals one's true inner self. Through consecration, the divine unveils to us its presence in the world around us and deep within ourselves. Consecration makes our lives a joyous living, and that's attributed to Karmayogi. Benefits of consecration. For attracting the greatest good fortune on a daily basis, we recommend you consecrate, that is, remember Mother once an hour at the top of the hour. As a result, your day will be filled with wonder and good fortune, and over time your consciousness will rise to the nth degree, shedding each of your wanting qualities one by one, while discovering your true self and psychic center, or soul. Opening to Mother's supramental power at the top of the hour has this overwhelming effect on your daily and long-term existence. There is nothing more powerful for the spiritual seeker and aspirant. When and how to consecrate or engage the spiritual force. The reader asks, what are the best ways of creating a daily plan of consecration to the divine? Should I make a particular statement to the divine when I consecrate? Your advice will be gratefully received. And Roy responds to the first question, when should I engage in the act? There are many approaches. Some people like to consecrate before certain activities, such as before the start of work, before important meetings, gatherings, etc. Others like to consecrate on a regular basis, such as every hour. Others still will consecrate when there's a difficulty, or when we express a wanting tendency and we offer it up, or even when an opportunity arises. Many do various combinations of the above. The second part of the answer to the question, how should I engage in the act? If there's time, such as at the beginning of starting one's daily work or before a major activity or event, one can settle in before the act of consecrating. For example, try to be silent for a moment, and then think of the coming day or activity or problem, including its circumstance, and in your mind say, I offer this XYZ to you. Then let your aspiration of offering soar to the divine, to the Mother. Then, after a moment, say and feel, Thy will be done, indicating you have no particular expectation of precisely how things should go, or what should happen, or what the solution to a problem should be. Then release from that effort, even forget about it, and carry on with your life. Past consecration is a marvelous method of undoing any existing problem. You think back on the causes, including one's wanting attitudes, behaviors, decisions, and other things, and then you offer it to the spiritual force, the Divine Mother, which then moves and acts on your behalf, overcoming the burden of the past on the present, either directly related to the problem or in related ways. Several advanced consecration methods that evoke the miraculous. Consecrate wayward, negative unfoldings and events. Consecrate wanting emotions, for example, in a difficult situation. Consecrate a thought as it arises. Consecrate another's intensity. Consecrate anything that comes to one as sharp in life, whether physically, vitally, or mentally. Feel contrition and consecrate one's false past actions. Beyond thinking to consecration. As the physical work is replaced by the mind by thinking, thinking should be replaced by consecration. And that's attributed to Sri Karmayogi. Consecration deepens one's consciousness. As you consecrate more often, your center of consciousness deepens, and as a result, you become more aware, enabling you to catch ego movements and thoughts and acts of selfishness. Consecration that enables depth and soul that opens mind to spiritual mind. Consecration that is opening to the spiritual force facilitates the process by which we experience the attributes of spiritual mind. That act causes us to move to a deeper poise, culminating in the evolving soul, the source of the inner flame, which in turn causes our mind to expand upwards to the spiritual planes of mind of light, intuition, and supramental perception, where we tend to know all there is to know about matter in a flash, thereby overcoming limits of space and time, bringing the infinite into the finite. The integral yoga process. Sri Aurobindo and Karmayogi indicate that there is an outer mind and an inner mind. The outer is our normal consciousness. Through the inner mind, one can reach the transcendent spirit, which can occur through intense meditation or other means, as occurred for the ancient rishis. However, we do not want to be lost in moksha or liberation apart from life. We want to experience the spirit in life. How can we do this? Behind the inner mind is the subliminal being, which sends up positive influences that guide us, as it is in touch with the superconscious throughout the seen and unseen universe. Deeper still is the psychic being, the evolving soul and true self within, behind the heart in that center of being. From the psychic, the integral yoga and its ensuing transformation can begin, though it is ultimately realized and fulfilled at the supramental plane. How to arrive at the psychic being to begin this process? Sri Aurobindo and Karmayogi offer consecration. When we consecrate, our consciousness moves to the subliminal and deeper still to the psychic being, which then causes our mind to expand to supermind and its consciousness. Now we receive the benefit of that plane continually, including its force which evokes the infinite into the finite, and perceive the true nature of reality, which is the vision of Brahman. Beyond consecration is surrender of our psychic being, as well as our very purpose of being, to the Divine Mother. This accelerates and deepens the above process of evolution and transformation, enabling us to become true supramental, Gnostic beings at all planes. This is how I understand the integral yoga process just now. Impatience versus consecration. Impatience is the body's inability to obey mind. Consecration is mind's willingness to obey the spirit. Attributed to Sri Karmayogi. Hourly consecration. A reader questions, if you use this method, how do you do hourly consecrations? For example, do you stop what you're doing immediately? And for how long? What process do you follow, etc.? A reader responds, I stop if I can, but if the current of remembrance is there, it is often possible to consecrate in the midst of an action, driving, for instance. I try to include some words of a prayer or mantra that she has given as well, to tune into her consciousness behind the words. Another reader responds, I don't think that there is any single correct way, save that we are open to Mother. The only point that I notice Sri Karmayogi stresses is that it's important to consecrate at the same time if we seek to awaken the spirit for transformation of personality. An additional comment. I am adding these comments of Sri Karmayogi on the subject that are in English. He also has Tamil content that may shed additional light. And here are the points. Hourly consecration alerts the surface and helps break the crust for those who desire to cross it. Having crossed the surface, it is not such a great help as it needs attention periodically. Hourly consecration achieved by prayer of remembrance achieves not by constant remembrance, but by faith in prayer. People who miss an hour in hourly consecration can fully compensate for it by maintaining the consecration during that full hour. And we continue the hourly consecration, extracted and modified from a karmayogi.net post. Sri Karmayogi is very fond of suggesting the practice of hourly consecration to any devotee who is facing serious problems in health, work and income and family relationships, etc. He also recommends the same when any devotee receives information about some big opportunity coming, so that the opportunity becomes a reality. During the last 6 months or so, Sri Karmayogi recommended hourly consecration to 4 people with health disorders. It worked for an elderly devotee in his 70s who took it up in a serious manner, and the extent of his recovery surprised even the doctor he was consulting. The practice is very demanding and difficult, but for those who enjoy doing it, it can be rewarding in a big way spiritually, psychologically, and materially. Connecting with our true self. It is said that our deepest self craves for our supreme purpose, which in turn compels us to partake in the perfection of life. How then do we get in touch with that deepest element within us? There are many spiritual approaches. Ours is consecration, opening to the supramental force, the divine mother power that there is in the atmosphere. Each time we consecrate, in the background our consciousness moves to an increasingly deeper poise until it comes upon the true self, the soul and psychic being. That enables us not only to experience spiritual qualities of deep peace, silence, harmony, truth, wisdom, goodness, love, joy, and timelessness, but it gives us a profound feeling of purpose that gives direction to our lives, including an aspiration to participate in humanity's progress, evolution, and transformation. By touching the soul that is the divinity in ourselves, we open the door to infinite possibilities that is there in the infinite consciousness. And we continue on that topic. A reader asks, Sir, how can one settle in this deeper poise, and how can one make consecration purer and intenser? And the response is, consecration creates concentration, or deeper poise. Consecration becomes purer and intenser through increasing sincerity in wanting to be connected to and guided by the mother in one's life instead of living mere ordinary outer life. In other words, consecration can be purer and intenser by developing deeper aspiration for the divine, for mother in one's life. Roy shares this story called The Shutdown. Consecration of a problem works best when it is accompanied by taking any positive action you can to remedy the situation while remaining very still in your emotions. A couple apparently had their internet service permanently shut off, which they had been sharing with others nearby. It was a serious moment. However, they spontaneously consecrated the situation, offering the problem to the Divine Mother. And they also remained quite calm considering the severity of the situation. Plus, they creatively thought about alternative solutions and contacted the local supplier to find out what was possible. 5 minutes later, they were astounded when the service came back on and they were able to use the service just as before. In another story Roy calls the training class, he relates this situation. Consecration is calling to the supramental force, which is unity consciousness. That is, wherever there is separation, harmony, oneness, and unity is evoked through the consecrated act. For example, many years ago I was conducting a training class. The morning session was chaotic, even conflictive. During the lunch break I called to Mother intensely. Then, in the afternoon session with that same group, a profound stillness suddenly came over that room. A sense of harmony and well-being permeated all. The chaos of the morning session was gone and forgotten as if it had never happened. Harmony reigned supreme. Spiritual alertness is always having an accurate perception of events in terms of what the higher force is trying to bring to the situation. And that's a paraphrase of Ramesh Kumar. And Roy commented that he really cherished that thought. My current method of consecration to Mother is, after awakening in the morning, to think about each major upcoming activity or situation or condition for the day and offer each one individually to her with intensity. It has definitely produced positive results. From there, in the course of the day, I also try to consecrate as activities and circumstance, foreseen or not, warrant it. Consecration is a movement away from ego, that is separateness. It moves us deeper within into the subliminal and psychic being, which breaks down barriers between ourselves and others and life. It shows us that all is part of the reality, not just what we perceive from our limited separative perspective of ego. Consecration brings one to self, which perceives life increasingly in this harmonic fashion. Then, attributed to Sri Karmayogi, are the following statements. When a devotee consecrates, he is actually seeking Mother's manifesting aspects in work. He silently secures Mother in the crevices of his subconscious being, where all parts of human instrument unasked will always be there. When the mind dwells on Mother, Mother enters the deepest layers of the mind as light and saturates those layers. Later, it expresses as knowledge, through intuition or incidentally, through others, by overcoming all limitations of the ego, all barriers of mental, vital, and physical. The new information that he stumbles upon brings an unprecedented result of infinite dimensions. And the response is wonderful explanation of how consecration penetrates the various levels of our being within we are not normally aware of. Consecration to Mother. A central tenet of Sri Aurobindo is the surrender of the devotee or sadhak to the Mother. She stands as the instrument through which the divine Shakti, the supramental power, flows. Devotees are asked to open up to her power, or simply just to Mother, when engaging in all facets of life. That will ensure that the supramental force can enter their person and transmute all aspects of their existence, including their own nature as well as the unfoldings of life around them. By doing so, instantaneous miraculousness can occur. Since Mother has left her body, the action of her force seems to be growing, with an ever-increasing power and effectivity to transmute the targeted aspect of life, whether parts of our own nature, mental, vital, or physical, to the life around us we engage in. Concentration, Consecration Symphony. In one sense, spiritual concentration and spiritual consecration are movements in opposite directions. Imagine a funnel. At the wide end is our normal consciousness. Through an all-inclusive concentration, we can shift from the wider end of our limited surface consciousness to the narrow, deeper one, which is our inner being, culminating in the psychic entity. Consecration, on the other hand, is like starting from the narrow end of a funnel, where our limited consciousness lies, and opening to the wider end, which is the vastness of Mother, the supramental power. And yet, constant consecration can eliminate the need to concentrate on the inner being. And we continue. Through constant consecration, we not only evoke the best life conditions, but we deepen our center of awareness. It thus works to concentrate us. Now, from that deeper center, we are more focused in the inner spirit, which creates an inner aspiration to consecrate more deeply and more often, even creating the possibility of surrendering our entire life and being to her. A circular rhythm is thus established of consecration, concentration, consecration. A cosmic symphony plays itself out among our true self, psychic being, the Divine Mother, and life. Non-stop ecstatic joy and delight is the result. Hourly consecration, on the dot, at the very top of the hour, has a great power to overcome illness. A reader responds, "Wow, I've had a reminder on my phone to help me with hourly consecration for about 2 years. Thanks, Roy. Why does hourly consecration have a great power to overcome illness specifically?" Roy responds, "It's a very good question, and some possibilities include it's the power of a very organized discipline in terms of regularity of time, utilizing the force. It's very challenging to do and thus tests and brings out the concentration of your higher nature. The fact that many are doing it at the very same moment." And we continue. "It builds up a great concentration in terms of focus, sharpness, and summation of the force. The possibility that the cells feel comforted by the regularity of the force entering, that it keeps Mother in your mind and indicates a building faith, that the force intersects with work activities, giving a new orientation to those energies, etc." And then Roy says perhaps others have additional perspectives on this subject. Hourly consecration approach. The question is how to do hourly consecration. And the answer is, my approach is at exactly, for example, 6:00 p.m. on the dot. You remember Mother or move your attention to the force while offering the problem or opportunity, and then think or feel "Thy will be done" altogether for a few minutes. Do this for each waking hour. What is key is the intensity. Power of past consecration. Many believe that if you have made a grave error from the past that is still having a dire influence on you now, you will not have a chance to overcome it, that the past is now sealed, that fate cannot be altered, and that even God does not have the power to change it. However, if you have made a grave error or done something negative that is having long-term effect that is still affecting you now, you can practice past consecration, which will have the power to overcome the negative influences on your present condition from the past. For example, suppose you made wrong financial arrangements that caused you to go into great debt. It is dearly affecting your present life. Now, you recognize your mistaken attitudes of incessant borrowing from the past, feel genuine contrition for it, and offer it to the Mother. You are likely to see a powerful positive response, such as an offer for a new work that pays 4 times what you're now earning, enabling you to pay back much of the debt in a timely manner, or you will suddenly come upon a government-sponsored debt repayment plan that is a compromise from all parties, etc., etc. Past consecration thus overcomes the negative influences on the past on your present condition. When you perceive one or several truths in another's point of view that you persistently condemned or disagreed with in the past, you are taking a small step towards supramental perception, that is, unity and truth consciousness. And the reader asks, is this past consecration? And the response is, past consecration is where you recall a negative of the past and its cause that is still adversely affecting you today and offer it to the Mother so its influence in the present gets dissolved. So the above statement is perhaps a kind of past consecration. Consecration versus prayer. Sincerity, opening, receptivity, and consecration are the methods that Sri Aurobindo advocates. When we pray, we ask for a specific thing. Having applied for a job, I naturally seek selection. Consecration differs from prayer in that we come forward to accept whatever the divine grants. The divine may grant something else or more or less. The capacity to accept what the divine offers leads to spiritual progress. Attributed to Sri Karmayogi. Prayer, consecration, and calling. Prayer is great. Mother, please give me what I want. Still, it is most often filled with ego. Consecration is greater still. Mother, here is this issue and that issue. I consecrate them to you to be solved. Thy will be done in this matter. Calling is greatest of all. Mother, please come into my life to guide me forward. Mother, please bring your consciousness here, your knowledge, your peace, your power. Mother, let me be an instrument of your will. We are thus calling not for our sake, for our problem, but for her sake, so her consciousness can divinize the world. And that's the words of Gary Jacobs paraphrased. The law of attraction versus consecration. The law of attraction, as explained in The Secret book, is the work of the mind and emotion to accomplish what one wants through the universal force. Consecration is the experience as introduced by Sri Aurobindo and is the process by which one crosses the limitation of mind, emotion, and body and touches the truth consciousness, supermind, which is the source code for the universal force. And those words are attributed to Nedumaran Ramakrishnan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This was untitled in the book. I titled it On Problem Solving. Karmayogi indicates that the first thing to do to solve a problem is to stop energizing it. When we keep thinking about the problem, we energize it. Even when we consecrate the problem, such as in hourly consecration, we can energize it. Consecration should be an act of self-offering to her and her will, not an opportune time to dwell on the problem, desperately asking her to solve it. That is, instead of dwelling on the problem on the hour, we should remember Mother alone. Life response results will then be maximum. A reader says, "It is helpful, actually blissful, to become aware of her presence in the concentration center or in front of you. If you feel threatened, you can imagine her, large and enveloping you. This shifts the focus to her and gives immediate relief while the problem itself and its resolution lie in her hands. The problem or opportunity are secondary, illusionary in a sense. The solution is always to go towards the Mother because she always does what is required. We describe the situation in order to make it clear to our mind, and to a certain extent that itself gives some relief because the situation seems less daunting and manageable. However, as the hours pass, the consecration gets deeper, and you forget the problem completely, as you should, and conscious remembrance of the divine is left." The response is, N explains it beautifully. The focus should be on her, not the problem, although a brief offering it to her at the outset is acceptable. All emotion is to surrender to her, to open to her will, not the problem, however. In other words, thy will be done, not my will. When the soul forgets its problems, they disappear. And that's an aphorism of Sri Aurobindo. The deeper the source of our consecrated efforts, that is, our focus completely on Mother, not ourselves, the more she acts in our favor. The shallower our consecrated effort, that is, our focus on our own needs and wants, essentially our ego, the less we see her actions in our life. When you indicate thy will be done at the end of a consecration or prayer, it's best to really mean it, instead of it just passing your lips. That is, you are indicating that you are truly open to any way the Mother will deal with the issue or circumstance at hand, instead of your own fixed way. This will give the invocation greater power for greater result. And our final excerpt from Inspirations is consecrating one's achieved success. Although we have utilized Mother to rise up and succeed, a new level of consecration is necessitated by that higher status. At this level of achievement, we can consecrate our sense of satisfaction, our sense of status, our feelings of prestige, our sense of self-importance, our sense of our developed capacities, our sense of endowments, our proud sense of comfort that we have achieved in material objects we've acquired, our sense of feeling special, etc., etc. And that is Gary Jacobs paraphrased. And now for a few quotes from the book Spiritual Life. Consecration opens the mind in trying to solve a pressing problem. Upon awakening, do we merely engage in our normal routines, or do we consecrate the day, offering our deepest aspirations to the higher power? I like this example of a typical activity we pretty much all do in our day-to-day lives, and I thought this would be good to include. It's on conscious eating. Consecrate the activity to the Divine Mother. Concentrate on the meal at hand, putting aside other matters. Avoid speaking if you can. Empty the mind of thoughts. Focus on the food. Observe yourself eating. Savor the food, but without attachment. Eat slowly and carefully. And at the end, feel fulfilled, immersed in silence and satisfaction. Consecration contains the complete act. Based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and his view of the process of creation, Karmayogi has conceived of the complete act. It is the combination of certain factors executed consecutively in a process that all but guarantees perfect execution and outcome, including an often startling, unexpected positive response from life. The complete act begins with the conception of what one wants to achieve, followed by one's supporting will and emotions for it to be carried out, followed by the physical execution of the act, supported by right attitudes and skills, leading to an outcome that is perfect, even unprecedentedly so. One can follow this process for any major activity, like a project, or even the smallest act, such as brushing one's teeth. It's a microcosm of and similar to the process that enabled the universe to emerge from a divine source. Consecration is opening to the supramental power that has descended into the Earth's atmosphere, that engages in and fulfills all stages of the complete act process in a single spiritual gesture, returning immediate, unprecedented, infinitely creative results. Consecration is the spiritual method of opening to the supramental power, aspiring for a great outcome, yet indicating Thy will be done, where the Spirit's will of the outcome is paramount, not your own will, which can limit the result. The complete act enabling perfect outcomes. Sri Karmayogi has devised the complete act, which results in perfect outcomes, including startling life response results. It consists of the mental vision of the activity to be accomplished, vital will for it to be done, physical effort to execute it through right strategies, attitudes, and skills, all topped by offering each stage to the Divine, the Mother. Perfection and the infinite breaking out from the current finite are the result. Consecration, moving to our highest consciousness. What Sri Aurobindo and Mother mean by consecration is for us at each moment to aspire and act in the highest consciousness we're aware of. To find that point in our psychological and spiritual compass and move away from the low and instead take to the highest high. As a result, life will unfold magnificently and cooperate with us from various quarters. The more you go within, into the depths of one's being, the more you go up. That is, you're more inclined to consecrate, to offer one's actions and issues to the higher power. It is also true, the more you go up, that is, consecrate, the more your center of consciousness will be centered within, in the depths of your being. Now I want to conclude part one of this video by repeating a paraphrase of Gary Jacobs that we mentioned a little earlier, but I think it's fitting to end it with this particular quote. Consecrating one's achieved success. Though we may have utilized Mother to rise up and succeed, a new level of consecration is necessitated by that higher status. At this level of achievement, we can consecrate our sense of satisfaction, our sense of status, our feelings of prestige, our sense of self-importance, our sense of our developed capacities, our sense of our endowments, our proud sense of comfort we've achieved and material objects we have acquired, our sense of feeling special, etc., etc. And that again is the wise words of Gary Jacobs. I want to thank you so much for staying with me through this first video about consecration. And in the next one, I'm going to be reading a few longer passages, also from Roy Posner's books, primarily A New Way of Living. So if you haven't yet subscribed and would like to, I invite you to do so. And I look forward to having you back here real soon. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.